We are.
I'm about to do the countdown.
Professional.
Quiet.
Do the countdown.
Gary, coming to you. 3, 2, 1, we're on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gary and Kenny Show. I'm Gary Kroger in Waterloo, Iowa, and as always, I'm joined by...
I'm always here for you, Gary. Ken Seisler in Calabasas, California.
I never know for sure what you're going to say. Sometimes you'll say that, your soupy sales from Boise.
I know. Well, that's when I'm usually not feeling myself, but apparently I'm feeling myself today. So,
all right.
That's,
well, good.
That's who I am.
Hey, Kenny, I'd like to get right into it because, the strike is on a lot of our minds and a lot of our feet.
The Writers Guild strike.
The Writers Guild strike.
Specific.
And so we have a special guest. Would you be all right if I just brought her right on?
Oh,
you're going to say yes.
Of course I
am. You're going to say, no, I want to talk about my
rhetorical question. Go ahead.
All right. Well, our guest today is Susan Hurwitz Arneson, a writer, producer. I think, if I'm guessing right, about 6 years on South Park. I know there's a lot of Emmys that came along with that, including, I think, a death threat at one point.
Yeah, we did.
And
an FBI presence. Yep.
You were co-executive producer on The Tick. I know that as well. And I'm sure you're doing all sorts of things. You've worked with Seth MacFarlane, but now you are a lot coordinator?
Correct. That is the term.
All right. Well, tell us, let's start with you being a lot coordinator.
Sure.
What does that mean over on the Sony lot?
Okay. First, I just have to say I appreciate any podcast that starts with a soupy sales reference.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for that.
Well, it kind of tells you our demographic, doesn't it?
right. Yeah, well, I thought I was being current.
The fact that I know who that is probably doesn't help me with my sort of how Hollywood views me right now. But a lot coordinator is I'm a WGA captain, and I volunteered to run the picket lines at Sony.
So Susan, let's get right to the strike.
Yes.
Okay. This one feels different than the previous ones.
Yeah.
And I say that because I'm in the Directors Guild, for instance, and our directors' negotiations are going on right now. And when I look at the list of things that we talk about for directors, it's basically the same all the time, which is more money, more money, more money. But it's very different for the Writers Guild.
Yes.
Now, you want to explain to people who might be listening what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's across the board. I think for the Writers Guild, there's a myriad of issues, and we do share the ones with the Directors Guilds in terms of disappearing residuals and, getting paid what we're worth. But I think that there's a few things on the TV side as well as the feature side. On the TV side, which is, the side that I spend most of my time on, there's the concept of the mini room, also known as the pre-greenlight writer's room. There's that where they're
Do you want to
able
explain to people who don't know what that mini room means?
Yeah, it actually comes in a bunch of different forms. It's insidious. So the one that I'm the most familiar with is my experience. So I'll speak to that. Which is a pre-greenlight mini room, which I ran a show for one of the streamers, a big show. Didn't make it on the air, but it was, a big budgeted, epic sort of show. And I had what felt like a normal writer's room, right? I had offices. We actually did it in person, which was amazing. I had a decent sized room of me and 5 other writers. I had my writer's assistant. I had a, writer's PA. I had all of those things. The big difference was that I, as the showrunner with 15 years of experience, was getting paid exactly what everybody else in that room, except for my staff writer, was getting paid. So they find a way, because it's pre-greenlit, there's a loophole that allows them to just pay guild minimum, because I'm supposedly not doing any of my producer's duties at the time. Is basically what they're saying. Because
the show's not in production.
Correct, right? So in the old way it used to work was almost an assembly line, right? It was, for instance, when I worked on Preacher, we would start writing as a room, we'd come together, but at some point during that process, we would start in pre-production, and then writers would peel off and go to set, which was in Australia the year I was there. We would be doing pre-production. We would go and be on set for production. And while we were there on set, the writer's room was still continuing writing and doing the rest of the season, right? So you had that production line. What they're trying to do now is get as much upfront in as short a period of time as they can with as few writers, so that when it comes to something, if it gets picked, well, first, because they don't spend a ton of money doing that, they can pay minimum. And second, once something gets picked up production, they've already cut loose every other writer. So now the responsibility of all of production falls on the showrunner. So you're not paying for people to go to set, which means up and coming writers aren't being mentored. They're not learning how to become showrunners and producers. So there's a whole level of from top down where it's screwing people. And when you limit writer room size too, and you're limiting the amount of time we have, say you used to be in 20 weeks, you're writing some of the show and then you're in production and it's going to keep going. But now they want all 8, 10, whatever scripts for streaming within that short period of time. And so you're almost forced to hire more experienced writers because you don't have the time, if it's a 10-week room, to really help and train and mentor younger writers. And that's a huge problem. So beyond financial, we're not doing right by the next generation of writers because of these mini rooms.
Right. And that's unique for the writers as opposed to directors. We don't have anything like that.
Correct.
What have the producers come to the table with? Where have there been some agreement?
I don't think there's been full agreement. I think the one biggest thing that really stood out to me when we heard from guild leadership, and we've been fighting for years right now, because it's always been considered a mentory type thing, staff writers have never been paid for script. They don't get script fee. They get their weekly salary and that's it. One of the things that they actually gave on, which we've been trying to get for years, was allowing staff writers to be paid to get script fees, which was a huge win. But I don't know, we don't know if that's because you're going to create a system where we're never able to hire staff writers, or if it's a legit, giving in on something. So, and I think there was some movement in pension and some movement in stuff like that. But, for most of the things that we need in terms of AI, mini rooms, free work by both TV and especially feature writers, they're denying that those things even exist. They're calling it collaborative work versus, steps that they're not paying for.
So the big scary thing that is AI,
yes,
they're not even admitting that this is the issue that we know it is? Or
no,
could
yeah. Be? No, and I think that that's what they did with, back in 2007, I think they did that with streaming, right? We don't know what's going to happen. This is a new and emerging technology. Why should we talk about it? But I think that back then we stood our ground, and because we did, Hulu launched the day after that strike ended, and it brought in, the age of streaming. And had we not stood our ground back in 2007, every streaming service that followed since, we would have been even more screwed than we currently are. So they're basically saying about AI right now that, again, it's an emerging technology. We don't know what it's going to be. How can we regulate what it's going to be? But what they would agree to is let's have a yearly conversation or meeting about emerging technology.
Yeah, that's not very satisfying.
No, it's not.
No, AI is frightening, and it's
because it grows exponentially. It learns.
Yes.
And in my fear, maybe this is the stupidest question you've ever been asked, but I'm going to ask it.
Probably not.
Is there a risk that producers are going to go, well, we've got to have content. I got to make money. I got to put something on the air. Let's tweak this AI machinery and start creating product. And God forbid if it works on any level. I mean, you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of fears in it. I mean, there's a lot of trying to project what could potentially happen. Is it a producer comes up with a rando idea that normally they would throw, in a meeting, you go to general meetings and a producer throws out, I have this idea, and it's like one sentence. And from that, you build a world, you build characters, you build a show or a movie. The idea is that they put that into AI and then it spits out a garbage script. They get the created by, and you can maybe get, they'll get you could take money that way. I mean, that's a potential. But I think one of the things that really is if you've seen any of the AI stuff that's been spit out, it you can absolutely tell it lacks humanity.
Of course, absolutely.
I mean, besides that, I think there's a legal issue. A friend of mine who is a writer has said, the thing is, AI is really just going out into the data world, and it's pulling words and ideas that probably a writer put in there to begin with.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, there's definitely a copyright issue. And that's something that, the legal system hasn't caught up to. The technology, once again, is moving at a much more rapid pace than government intervention or, the legal system is moving into. But I think that that's going to be a big problem. And I think actors are currently talking about, whether they'll be able to copyright their faces and voices.
Of course.
Mhm.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
Part of it,
Well,
for sure.
a big
Terrifying.
theme of Gary and our show is that fortunately we're going to be dead by the time this all happens.
That's our refrain. Well, we won't be alive
because,
to see it.
a lot of the stuff that's coming in the future, we're like, oh my God, I'm so glad we're not going to be around to see it.
Yeah. But again, and not to belabor AI, although it needs to be belabored, it's moving so fast. Right now, you go on to chat, whatever that is, and you put this in, and I can tell that it was cobbled together and there's inaccuracies. You can find them, but that's changing fast. Right. I just heard an AI Lennon-McCartney tune that was never a Lennon-McCartney tune sung by them without lyrics that they ever wrote, but it sounds like a Lennon-McCartney tune.
Yeah, no.
You could almost say, hey, this was unearthed and no one would know.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to have to look at. In the political climate that we currently live in this country, deep fakes and things like that, and how that's going to affect our political. It really, we're talking about it as writers and as artists and as actors and all of that, but it has, the WGA is standing for something that's going to affect, I think, professions across the board and sort of humanity across the board. And we're trying to draw a line in the sand right now to slow that down. And that's a fight not just for writers and artists. That's a fight for it sounds sort of lame and Batman-y, which I love, but it is sort of a human fight for.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Speaking of humans,
human ability.
Speaking of humans. I think sometimes in these strikes and these that happen across the country, there's public will take a side. And if there's a railroad strike, they understand the railroad strike. The railroads bring us goods and services, and if you don't pay them enough money, we're not going to get our goods and services. And so there's political pressure that's put on from, the constituents that you have to make sure this is resolved. I don't know how the public out there, those humans, are perceiving the Hollywood people who are on strike now, and whether or not they've taken a political position or not.
Yeah, I think that there was just I saw it online from somebody in leadership that there was just a poll, and I wish I could remember who the poll was from, that 70% of Americans across political, whether you're a Trumpian or you're a Bernie Sanders, that across the board 70% of people are supporting the writers' strike, and I think,
but they won't give up their streaming service. They won't
stop
watching
and
TV.
I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know the numbers, so I don't want to misquote or anything. I don't know that canceling your streaming service gives the message we want it to give, or is it something that they use against us to say, look, we're not making enough money. So I think that the feel right now is that, if there is a PR battle, which there absolutely always is, that writers are sort of are winning it, because I think we're speaking about fundamental human things, which is the right to be able to make a living. And I live in LA. It's incredibly expensive. I've been in this business for 15 years, but I'm a journeyman writer. I have run a show. I've done all of those things, but I rent. We have one car that's a 2007 and it's a bit of a beater, but it's like, we make choices so that I can continue to do this career. And when I'm done with a job, I start hustling to get my next job. So there's never a point where you don't. That hustle has gotten worse.
Right.
I think people are starting to understand we're not all rich assholes who live in mansions.
They're starting
in Beverly
to.
Hills.
Look, I'm the one here in the hinterlands. I'm in Iowa, and I'm not surrounded by show business, and the people I interact with don't understand show business. However, just from my little personal polling, the pulse that I'm getting from people is they understand that this is a human being issue. They see it in terms of Terminator and Matrix.
Absolutely.
But that's how they see it. And it does scare the blue collar guy across the street over here. That somebody posted a thing across the street that said, I never imagined a future where humans are fighting for minimum wage and robots are writing poetry.
Right. Yeah.
So absolutely. They get it. They get it.
Yeah. And when you see things like, CEOs of major corporations are laying off and firing people right and left, but they're still making over $200 million a year. Yeah.
David Zaslav, who's just gave the commencement speech at Boston University.
Oh, that's right. He got heckled.
And booed because he makes $375 million a year.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and what was glorious to me about that is that, you see comments online about how dare those writers step in and ruin those kids' days and, their day, they've worked so hard. And I think people are missing the fact that the writers were outside. The people heckling him were the students.
Right.
And that gives me hope for the next generation.
No, I think,
because those are kids
Well,
that want to be doing what I do for a living. And that might not be a possibility for them if we don't stand strong.
well, let me ask you this. What's the funniest thing you've seen the writers write on the picket line?
There's a mustache twirling sign that I love to pick up in the morning. What's really fun to watch is people that you recognize every day coming, and you get to pick your sign. So you can kind of tell like somebody's mood. It's a little bit like a mood ring. Like, ooh, what's it going to hold today? Is it going to be the angry sign? Is it going to be the silly sign? Is it going to be the honk for me sign? Is it going to be, or are they going to bring one of their own from home? So I kind of that's my favorite thing, is to like judge people's moods based on which sign they've chosen today, because it is a personality test.
How long are they expected to walk on the picket? I don't know about expected, but what is the average?
You're out there 4 hours a day, right?
Yeah, I do an entire shift. So I get there at 8:45 in the morning so I can organize my captains. And then I walk from 9 till 1:15.
Man,
every single day.
That's a lot on the feet.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
We're going to let you go and soak your feet very soon here, because we're a relatively short show. But
it's good to stay.
Again, if this little podcast has a purpose, it is to get it out there to people who aren't in show business, because solidarity really means everybody. Everybody needs to understand and get behind the writers. I've been through my share of strikes, and one, I barely survived. I mean, financially, I was down to broke. So what's the matrix of support? I mean, is there a stipend from the guild at all to?
I mean, the guild has for writers, and I forgot the name of what the Actors Fund is called. But anyway, for the guild, for people that are guild members, there's a fund where you can get no interest loans that really don't have a set payback time. So there's that financial support, and that's supported by writers and by the guild. And then there's what used to be called the Actors Fund, and God damn, I knew I was going to forget a word, but I think it might be called the Community Fund. And that's a fund that anybody can donate to, that people, no matter what they do within the industry, you could be a gaffer, you could be an actor, you could be an assistant, that you can also get funds and help. Humanitas has been funded to give grocery cards to writers, because a lot of us do live, people think like, oh, you have these great jobs. If you made that amount of money every week for an entire year, it'd be great. But generally you're making it for 10 weeks. So, and then that's spreading as you're looking for other work. So, a lot of people are taking other jobs. And so there are some places and ways for us to help. If the community wants to help, you can absolutely find the Community Fund. It used to be called the Actors Fund. And make a donation, and that helps people, that aren't necessarily writers, but everybody.
That's a good idea. I'd like to promote that. I will personally promote. Anybody can give money to that fund.
Anybody can give money to that fund, and it's not just helping writers, because we're incredibly cognizant of the fact that by us walking out and stopping things, that there's collateral damage to that, and that sucks. But we also feel that that's the AMPTP, and if they would just make an honest deal, then none of us would be hurting. So
there you go.
Are you hearing a dog bark on your end? Hopefully not.
Your dog barking?
I think her dogs are somebody.
Her dogs are barking too, Kenny. That's a segue.
Oh, I am, but I'm going to ask her this to clarify it, because before you came on, I mentioned to Gary that I believe that the animation writers are not necessarily Writers Guild, right? You can be a Writers Guild.
Correct. Right. So as you mentioned, I started on South Park, which was
were they Writers Guild?
They were no guilds. South Park was a complete non-union shop. So there's right now what there's shows like Family Guy and Simpsons and a bunch of other shows where the writers fought to be unionized, right? And then the shows that followed after them, were lucky enough to become unionized. But most of animated television, especially family and kids television, a lot of the streaming ones. I'm writing a feature for Sony Animation. All of that is under TAG, which is the Animation Guild, which is a part of IATSE. And because of that, it's funny, because when I came out of South Park, I was I remember the first show that I got on, which got me into the guild after 6 years of working in this business. I was finally in the Writers Guild, and I asked our rep, and I think across the board, the message has been we don't poach members from other unions. We just don't do that. But what the guild has been trying to do is to push for, as you're setting up a show, to try and set it up as guild. The problem is that we're getting pushback, and unless you are a giant name, you don't have necessarily the leverage to do that.
It's interesting
so
to me
it's a problem, and the pay is significantly less. I mean, we're as writers, we're getting cut, but tag writers who do the exact same job as us, and and I have done multiple animation, and I continue to do animation. The minimums and all of that is it's just not. It's not cool. It's a
Gary,
lot
can I tell
less.
my South Park story?
Oh, you have a
If you can be brief, Kenny, we're running out of time.
Okay, I'll try to. I'll just try to talk fast.
Okay.
Is that okay? All right.
Okay.
So, I actually started at MTV, and then after MTV, I joined Fox Lab. And when I was at Fox Lab, a guy named Brian Graydon, who was in charge of Fox Lab, he went to Colorado and he found these two kids who had just made a movie about cannibalism at the Donner Pass. He brought those two guys back. Now, I was back in the bullpen with a desk, and he put these two guys, Matt and Trey, right behind me to try to develop stuff for Fox Lab. And they developed a couple of really stupid things, like stupid dog thing. And then they gave me the script for a Gasmatron. And it was like, what the heck is this? Anyhow, none of the things that they had developed were working. But as Christmas was coming, they gave Brian this little animated thing, which was a fight between the people from South Park and Jesus Christ. And Brian, and I was one of them, we all sat there and we sent out all these VHS tapes to everybody saying, Merry Christmas from Fox Lab, which was the origination of South Park. And then it was, and I've always speculated, I don't know, but the Kenny they killed every week?
You know what? I'm going to buy this theory.
I'm in.
You're Kenny. I'm in.
I might be the Kenny. Yeah.
I'm going to share that Kenny story. I'm going to.
Yeah, it was the first ever, when you think about it, it was really legitimately the first viral video.
Yeah.
Because then it got uploaded as the internet was really sort of kicking off. And it really rode the wave.
And they got to do that show non-union.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Well, that's my
Susan,
2 minutes. Susan, a pleasure. Thank you for taking your time out.
Thank you for taking
you
time.
Guys.
Thank you for doing the hard work. I'm here in Iowa and I'm supporting you. I got a sign.
Thank you.
Union Strong out front. And we're going to put this all over. Kenny, how quick
could you write on your picket sign, watch me on the Gary and Kenny show?
Yes.
That would be helpful.
Absolutely.
But Kenny,
I gotta find a blank one, but I'll do it.
The sooner you turn this around, the sooner we can just get another little piece of information out there to the masses about this.
I will do that.
Yeah,
because
I appreciate it, you guys.
There's no room to give. We have to get it all.
Yep, and we're still feeling really strong, and we're out there as long as it takes to get a fair deal that gives writers a chance to, live a decent life.
Well, next time we'll have you.
I hope it doesn't come where they announce the winner for the best screenplay is an AI, and you hear a voice like from Alexa. I want to thank the Academy. Don't worry, Gary. We'll be dead by then.
Next time you'll be a guest, we'll talk about your career and the whales over your shoulder.
Oh yeah. It's for my husband. My husband's into whales.
All right.
So I live in a geodesic dome, just so you know. So that's why I like this walls all.
Are you for real?
Yeah, I live in a geodesic dome. Normally I sit downstairs where you can see the spiral staircase.
I actually have a geodesic dome story, but I'm not going to tell that.
All right. Notice that. Susan,
Hi, Susan. Thank you.
Union Strong. See you later.
You guys, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
She was very articulate, an articulate union spokesperson. I actually learned a lot.
Situation. It really is a groundbreaking strike, and this one may really drag on because it's ideological. It's not just about money.
It's about it's about replacing human beings.
Yeah.
It's about keeping creative humans relevant. And let me tell you something, Kenny. I shared, listening to the Beatles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, I want to hear what this sounds like. A brand new Beatles song. Well, it's really interesting. And yeah, it sounds like the Beatles. But knowing that it isn't, there's no emotional connection. I wish that I hadn't heard it. I want it to go away. I don't like things that are manufactured
but
by
will the
non-humans.
next generation be comfortable with it? The next generation always seems to be more comfortable with new technology than the past
are. But, you know, I'm noticing that the next generation is actually stepping up and saying, hey, wait a second. Writers are important. There's a lot of there's a young wave out there supporting
writers
this
are
strike.
important, but people will always make the choice for price over quality.
Well, producers certainly will. They've shown they're not any different than they've always been.
Right. But I'm saying people, the consumer, if they're able to get their streaming service or their content for less money, they will choose that.
But the quality of the content is important. I mean, I watch streaming shows when there's a community of people sharing them and, oh my God, this is so well written. This is so well acted. I mean, I don't just sit and watch streaming for the sake of streaming like I used to play, Tetris. Mm-hmm. It's the quality of the shows. And I can't imagine this dialogue coming from anything but a human mind or minds writing.
Well, yeah, the thing that, again, is another disappointment in the quality of people is that when you look at top trending movies on Netflix, it's an Adam Sandler comedy or it's usually not the highbrow stuff. It just isn't. Popular tastes are not necessarily quality. Popular tastes, they call it because most people like it. It doesn't mean it's because it's better.
Right. I was going to compare. I don't like the AI manufactured things for the same reason I don't like porn. And I believe I brought this up on this show. I don't like something that should be real manufactured just for the sake of I don't watch porn, and that's why I don't like fake sex. And so I don't like fake dialogue.
But
I don't like
just actors. It's like actors. They're just actors, like in another kind of movie.
But they're doing something that is uniquely human. I would have to say intercourse is uniquely. It requires the presence
it's just like you're watching a movie with actors who are portraying other people and having sex.
I don't like it because it's fake. It's fake of something that I consider very personal.
All right. Okay. I'm just saying. I'm okay.
I don't think anyone agrees with me really when I say this. But I just don't like fake sex.
It's very popular.
I don't like sex in movies because it's I don't know.
You are an old grumpy
No,
guy.
I'm not. I'm not.
And you say I'm irascible.
I'm not puritanical at all, but it's just I have this meter, this gauge that just doesn't like fake.
So I don't think your meter and gauge is working quite like it used to.
No, it's not. We've talked about that in other shows. Yeah,
Okay.
my meter takes blood pressure pills. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we should close it out, Gary.
Yeah, let's close it out, Kenny.
Tell the people what they need to know.
The people need to know that this was the Gary and Kenny Show. We are on all the popular podcast platforms. We're streamers on DB&A TV, which you can get through Roku. We have a YouTube channel so you can hear us. You can watch us if you want. Gary and Kenny Show.
We're ubiquitous.
And we'd love it if you'd give us a thumbs up, a thumbs up, and subscribe.
Yes, and comment. All right, thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Thank you, Kenny.